so it can be posted, and that way, if there's questions later on about a conversation, we have the recording done.
Good call. Good call. Yep. Is it? Yep, it's recording now, right? Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then, the idea there, of a second tiered request or action item could be something that's, doable, but a little more of a stretch. And like that third tier really is like dream item that could be really impactful, but it takes more effort there. So I think, perhaps we should, talk a little bit about that. The other really important thing that Lisa mentioned in our quick meeting was around budget workshop. So obviously we know the school committee is working on the school budget as we speak. So I think we should just, as we're forming our recommendations and thinking about process, if there are things that we are going to have as recommendations that have a budget impact, for example, the curriculum work group, if we are asking that, or our recommendation is that we adopt this RIDE approved curriculum, that will cost money. So, or professional development, whatever those things are, that those budget workshops are happening now, and that we should think about that and talk about that as we're trying to make our recommendations to the school committee. Because if we come with that recommendation at the end of the school year, the school committee's really only option there will be to, it's not going to be budgeted for, and therefore we'll have to push that off to next year during the budgeting cycle. So just to think about that as that's happening now, if that makes sense. I know that was kind of a lot, but those are some of the initial thoughts, kind of regarding what happens next with where our conversations are now. Yeah, I don't think I might to call on anybody. Yeah, go for it.
So I was just curious about, I think it sounds good. I guess I was just thinking about sort of when I think about different processes, kind of like the plan, do, check, act kind of cycle. Is there, had you talked about, how you would establish mechanisms to sort of check on those action items and sort of ensure some type of continuous improvement?
I think we should consider that. I don't know if we've thought any of that through to its entirety, but I do think that that's a really important piece, so that this is more than just 9 or more bullets on a piece of paper, but there's a true kind of action step even potentially below those bullets, and the checks and how does that happen. Yeah, I think that's a really good point.
Did anybody, Katie, was your hand up or are you just resting?
No, I just, my actual hand was up, but also my virtual hand
okay.
was up. I just wanted to make a point about funding and the process that we're in within the budget cycle. So as the district's internal funding, however, I would say that getting that in the district budget for continuity purposes is really critical, but there are some funding opportunities that might be like short-term stopgaps if there was some critical work that was needed, for example, or
your sound is
creative ways to make that work happen. But even just in an action, you could say as an action step.
Could you repeat what you said about the budget, because your sound was getting a little bit distorted?
Sorry, I have no problems until 7 p.m. for some reason. So I'm turning off my video to make this better, and my apologies.
That's clear.
So I was saying that as development officer, I'm happy to explore opportunities. And I think
development opportunities, and then we lost you.
For short-term kind of stopgaps. There might be ways. Yeah,
Development opportunities and
So-
then we
yeah.
lost sound
Sorry,
again.
somebody just muted me as well. So I'm happy to search for external opportunities and think that it's important to get it in the budget though for continuity purposes. I'm sorry, that was a struggle for everyone.
Well, I think one of the things we need to make sure is that we don't rush the process based on budget restraints. So if we come up with a good plan that has to roll for the next year's budget, that's fine. But I think, Katie, your suggestion for the interim is to go after some type of grant money or other type of funding to get it started. And then we have an idea really what the school the school district would need for a budget change at that point, as opposed to trying to rush through and throw something together and then say, we want money, we need money for this, and it may not be the right thing.
Very good point.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Joe.
Does anybody else have anything to add?
I was going to add additionally, I like the idea of let's figure out what it looks like. But so one of the things is, Dan, as you guys had already discussed, is that we probably want to look at what we want our reporting to look like. So we know what we need to drop into the buckets when it's time. At the same time, we may want to push a question back to the school committee, asking them, what do they think they want from us? So that we make sure that we are aligned with the same, expectations and values and commitments to this process, short of, they created this task force, but what were they looking for when they created this task force? Let's just revisit that with them, just to make sure that we're staying aligned. And then I think we may want to just kind of give them an interim findings report from each of our, just a summary of which each of the committees, what we're finding, so that they're kind of seasoned in their mind of what may be coming. So there's no surprises when we get to the final report. There's more of a, okay, yeah, they talked about this. Okay, yeah, that makes sense that now they're here. And then, okay, yeah, they shared this with us. Okay, yeah, this final product or this final recommendation list, yeah, this makes a lot of sense, so that they're ready to go when we're ready to make recommendations.
So are we talking about finalizing or coming together to finalize all of those recommendations in the subcommittees, or should we make that an action item, an agenda item, so that we discuss it when we're all together?
Well,
What?
I think it's going to be something to come forth later. I don't think, to my knowledge, I don't think any of the subcommittees are ready to make any strong recommendations. That's my gut feeling based on what we've presented so far. We still got a lot more work to do.
What was your thought, Dan, when you spoke, when you and Lisa were talking? What was?
When I saw Joe's hand up real quick, I don't know if you wanted to.
Oh,
Sorry,
sorry.
Joe.
Yeah, I just want,
No worries.
Dan, did you get any indication from the school committee as to how soon they want to hear from us?
So I did ask that to Lisa, and she said it, there's, really the school committee voted to create this task force through the school year. So really we have through May, June, I'm not sure what the last, school committee of the school year is, but to, ask for an extension, have a formal list of recommendations, provide a report. But she did say that, obviously the school committee knows that we're doing this work, and I think it would be helpful for them to know that we are making strides in this. And I think, as Joe said, to, not make it as, okay, happy June, here's a surprise. Here's a, long list of recommendations, have a great summer, and hopefully this is ready to go in the fall. So I think, somewhere in the middle there, while I don't think it's, of course, and Lisa doesn't speak for the whole school committee, but I think it's not a requirement that we give them a report right now, but I do think it could help us in the way of this is some of the work that we're doing through these, 3 large buckets, and, our expectations of ourselves is that we will have a list of X, Y, and Z to you by May, for example. So I do think that may be helpful to provide, and I think like what Joe Reddish said is, I don't think we're at a point of saying here's our draft recommendations. I don't think we're there, but as something to say, a brief highlight from as a task force what we've done, and then as our 3 subcommittees what the basis of our work has been, if that makes sense.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah. And then the other piece, Tim, that may be helpful early and then to formalize with our final like request for the year. I don't know how others feel. I don't think that as a task force we will be done this year. I don't think the work that we're doing will ever be done. So I think that's an important piece. But I think this critical work now, whether that be the ask could be to make a permanent standing, I don't think it would be a task force at that point, but a committee of the school subcommittee of the school committee, or do we ask that they reinstate the task force for another year? So I think just thinking about what that looks like as, it's already January, and we're just a few months away from the end of the school year somehow.
Excellent point. Yeah, this can't end the end of this school year.
Yeah.
But all of these steps, I mean, at least, we're laying the foundation, which is what's important. And the sooner we get together with the school committee to lock it in place for however, maybe that's something that we should all discuss at a later time too, is the duration or what it's going to come to at a certain point. Like you said, at that point, it probably wouldn't be a task force, but something to continue the dialogue is definitely going to have to remain in place. If there isn't any other, unless I missed anybody's hand this time. Was there anybody else who had anything to go along with our third agenda item?
It looks like Adonis and Katie have a hand up.
There you go. Thank you. And Donna?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, I am leaning towards an extension for this particular group for the next year, academic year. And the reason why is I feel like, the political system that we kind of are forced to function in does not always reflect the values of the people who are participating. In this case, we happen to be an anti-racism task force, and we have BIPOC people, Two-Spirit people. We are kind of converging from these different identities, and we should be allowed to kind of reflect our own systems in the political system. And I would say we only had a year, and in Indigenous time, in approaching a situation of this caliber, this magnitude, given today's events, we can clearly see that there needs to be a more longer term kind of time set aside for group cohesion, community building within these square boxes here on my screen tonight, and trust and relationship building. And so I would advocate for another year before kind of envisioning what comes after that to work as this particular group. I think that community building is not always a value that's honored or time spent or invested in that in our political system. So this is an opportunity to kind of be a microcosm of how these values can inform our politics moving forward. So that's just kind of a thought I had, and I would advocate for some longer time together to build the container.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Donis, Katie, you had your hand up?
Yeah, hoping you can hear me. I completely echo everything that Adonis said.
There you go. We
Last
do
school committee meeting is June, so just something to consider if we make that request to extend, to do it before then.
know. I didn't hear that date. Did you hear that date? The last school committee meeting you said, Katie?
June 22nd.
Thank you. June 22nd. I copy that.
Right on the calendar.
I think we're losing you again. But I think that's very important, Katie. June 22nd, she said, was the last school committee. It's still breaking up, Katie.
It looks like she's on mute too.
That's in
Yeah, how
between.
is that possible? Oh, so it's a lag. Okay.
I feel like we're in a Star Trek, you know. Scotty, we must have more power. More power to the Energizers.
Y- You're right, that she's already on mute, so that was just lagging on.
Yeah, so probably, I think what you may be saying, Katie, can correct me once you come back in, is that we need to make sure before the last school committee meeting, we request some type of extension. I think that's what that might have been.
Yeah.
That's what I hear as well.
Yeah.
So is there do we see any merit or, obviously, so that I think would be kind of by the end of the school year, which I totally agree, the need for more time there. Do we see any merit in providing a kind of interim, less formal update to the school committee at a school committee meeting?
I think it would be good to provide them after maybe our next meeting, is to provide a summary of the 3 buckets of, well, first off, explain to the school committee that we've separated into 3 buckets. And here's what the buckets have found so far. And this is what we're working on in the process. And then maybe at our next meeting that we do online is have for everybody to look at just an outline of what we think a report might look like, just the structure, and then we can share that with the school committee and say, this is what we were envisioning as a report, structure to provide you with, the final recommendations when we get to that point. We're not at that point, but here's what we perceive as how we might want to present this to you. Is this a format in which would be utilized by the school committee? And then our next meeting, we should be able, we should just, net out what that would look like. So, here's findings, here's recommendations, here's things that can be done without cost, here's things that would, need to be budgeted for, et cetera, et cetera.
And with that, also add in the fact that we would need that extension.
Right.
Although I don't know if we're asking for an extension, because were we actually given?
We weren't given a timeline,
I
so I don't
didn't
know
think
if we
so.
need an extension. So I think we just need to.
Clarify.
Maybe just
Update
to
them.
clarify that. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, because I would fear if we say nothing now between the end of the school year, the school committee has no idea. I'm sure Lisa provides, some insight as to what we're doing, but I think to hear from us. So I hear what you're saying, Joe. You think after our, what month is it? January, after our February meeting?
Yeah.
Provide.
Yeah, let's put together, let's really dig in first as our first topic of, here's what we think, and everybody can put some thoughts together maybe and get them to your team leaders, or part of our subcommittee meeting, put some ideas together, and then when we come back, we can share those ideas, and then we can on screen probably just say, okay, now let's have this and let's have this is what it should look like. And then we have our structure, and then we can give each other an update on our subcommittees. And then at the same time, then, from our subcommittees there is like, see how we want to, you know, ferret out that first kind of sub-report from the task force.
Great.
So what I'm hearing is we'll combine after we've had our subcommittee meetings, and sometime maybe around March, be ready to give a report to the school committee. Okay.
The preliminary report, not a final
Preliminary
report, but just a
Right.
kind of an update.
Mhm.
Right.
Status report.
Right.
So in
Great.
February, the 3 subcommittees should be ready to present something to the entire committee,
Right,
maybe move forward or to consider.
right. Just to keep us rolling forward, because I know we still have a lot of work and detail to dig out, but let's just, see where we're at. And then that kind of creates our sub-report.
Right, that sounds good.
Yep, that gives us a good timeline to work with.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so it sounds like, well, our next item is to schedule our next meeting. That would be February 3rd. Am I correct with the
Yep.
first? Okay. Oh, go ahead, Dan. I hear you breathe.
Oh, I was just saying, I was trying to pull up the agenda to see if it's on the same same line about agenda items for next time. Because I had a request that Lisa wanted to share or ask to see if it was something we wanted.
Oh, should we maybe have had that on here? Probably.
I think it is. I
Or
know I have the agenda
I might
up. I
have the
don't.
wrong one.
It's
Oh,
not
schedule
actually.
next meeting and
Yeah.
confirm meeting agenda.
And
Yeah, so I
confirm
think
it's
that.
on there. Yeah.
Yep. So
So
I had one thing I wanted to, because obviously because we're with Open Meetings Act and the rules we need to abide by there, we can only publicly talk about the things that are written on our agenda. And I don't know the answer to this or what, but interested in thoughts of, obviously the elephant in the room, current events, and what is our role, if any, to discuss current events, making recommendations to school committee administration about the discussion thereof, just to think, is that something, do we see that being of value at this meeting, in our purview, things like that.
I would say yes, but I would say no. It's one of those touchy ones. Personally, I would say for each of us, we know what's going on out in the outside world. I think our microcosm is to really focus in on our tasks that we can manage to, as opposed to trying to judge, understand what's going on outside of the world. We can look at it from a lens, I think, of how may it be affecting our students, but that's part of this process that we're going through, is to create vehicles so that these types of things can be managed by the staff and the community and the students, by us providing a good foundation for communication within the school.
So Dan, just a point of clarification, because I don't want you to hit down a slippery slope.
I know, I was just gonna say that, so I
right,
think
so you don't want a discussion. You wanted to say like,
should maybe for next meeting we
yes,
have
no,
an agenda
right.
item,
and you can
that
discuss that
says-
at the next meeting.
Yeah, I worded that to start a
You
conversation.
did sound okay, but then we just want to be careful that
Yeah.
everyone doesn't think that a discussion can happen right now, because it's
Yep.
not posted on the agenda, and that's when
Right, I
you get on the
apologize.
slippery slope.
Yeah. So my request would be for our next agenda that we can just discuss that as a task force. Is that in our purview as the anti-racism task force to discuss how current events intersect with the school district?
How current
Period.
events.
Mhm.
Right. That's very well
Yep.
worded.
Good.
I like that.
And then the one that Lisa had a question on to see, and it was more of a, we weren't sure if it has been looked at, but just thinking through has the, so maybe, I guess, again, not as a conversation, that for our next meeting, to us have a conversation or for the curriculum work group to have a conversation about the criminal justice curriculum. Do we have we spoken with, our partners there, looked into things related to the criminal justice curriculum at the high school?
So for that to be an agenda item, you're saying, correct?
Yes.
So Deanna,
Sorry, we're-
I want to clarify, would you, are you requesting the information of the curriculum, or are you asking to discuss it at the next meeting?
To discuss it at the
Okay.
next meeting. Yeah. And then I think the other one would be based on our conversation is about forming a report for the school committee.
Right.
And then, do you want to see if, would you like me to see if Jerry Orth or one of the teachers are available?
I think that would be really helpful just to talk about. Yeah, I think that would be really helpful.
Okay, and you said we're gonna have the meeting, Maya, did you say it's the first Wednesday again still?
Correct,
Yes,
February 3rd.
Thank you.
And Dan,
Or
we'll
the-
take away your ski pole so we can't get on any slippery slopes for the next meeting.
I appreciate it.
Dan,
Keep
can
your
you just,
skis on, Dan.
can you just repeat that last item?
The report for the school committee one or the criminal justice one?
Okay, it was just about discussing the structure of the report. Right.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds like it's going to be a pretty full meeting, but I'm going to ask, does anybody else have anything that they'd like to add for the agenda in February?
I think we need to continue inviting young people.
Anna, get some
Oh,
more of your friends. I'm
yeah.
charging you with that right now.
So I think that's an important
Yeah.
aspect of what we're doing, is to make sure we always have that seating and engagement. And and if there's people that, we should reach out to invite them, if it, helps to encourage them, let us know.
Yeah, and I think the last time Mr. McKenzie helped by reminding as well, so I think maybe that's what I'll do again, because I think sometimes, it's helpful to have that little reminder, like that's when I send them, so I'll ask
Right.
the team at the high school to remind the students when it happens.
Yeah, I
Can
think
I-
definitely if we send out an email, because I forgot to register for this meeting. I was wondering where the Zoom link was today. So just to send out a reminder to everyone, and I feel like that'll get more students interested.
No, I can, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
And can I just ask for one more clarification about
Absolutely.
we were talking about the dates to send in the sort of preliminary report or the update to the school committee meeting. What was that date again?
Well, we were looking to send like a preliminary report around March.
Okay,
We're thinking for around the March time.
Even,
Yeah.
or even April, I mean, Mark, I don't know if there's a meeting in April, maybe April, if it takes a little longer, we just want to get them something that's
Before their June.
Before the end of the
before their
Yeah,
last
yeah.
meeting of the
Okay.
year.
yeah.
So, yeah, because that first week of March, per the Charahoe Act, we're gonna be involved in the public
Budget.
budget. So they won't, that's already scheduled, they're actually scheduled for the 2nd and the 3rd, so we may have to move, we may want to think about April for that.
Right.
And maybe that gives the
Oh,
committee more
good.
time
Okay,
to do
Right.
subcommittee work in March, so that we're prepared for
Yeah.
April.
that sounds good. Yeah.
I'd like to suggest another item if folks can hear me.
Yes,
We can hear you loud and clear, Katie.
Could we add health careers to criminal justice? Inequities are strong.
Great idea.
So that would just be right along on the same agenda line. It would be
Mhm.
for the curriculum for criminal justice and health careers.
And I'm gonna, same question, Katie, would you like me to see if one of the teachers are available to attend? Okay.
This sounds good. Certainly going to be a lot more full on that agenda list. Does anybody else have anything that they'd like to add for our February 3rd agenda? Going once, twice, 3 times. Okay. Well, somebody has to make a motion for this, correct? Because the next item on our list is to adjourn. And somebody would have to make a motion for that. Somebody would.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Joe.
Second.
And Miss Heidi. I still want to call you Miss B. I will never be able to call you Heidi. You know that, right?
Well, why not?
Because the kids have been calling you Miss B forever. Like I see you on the road and I'm like, oh, Miss B. I don't say like, oh, Heidi. No, it's always Miss B.
Okay.
So Joe made the motion, seconded by Heidi. All those in favor
Aye.
of adjourning? And anyone opposed? Or does anyone abstain? Okay, so I will call the time at 7:40 that we are adjourning our meeting. Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay, see everyone soon. Take care of yourselves.
Okay,
so
Take
much.
care.
Thank you.
I.
Have a good night.